Hey, let's have a look at the Simple Aurora shader that I've made for you, and I appreciate you purchasing it. I saw the Aurora the other day, or last spring. We don't see it very much where I live, and so it inspired me to see if I could recreate that in Blender. We're looking at it right now in Eevee, but it works perfectly well in cycles. There's something to keep in mind if you're in Eevee, and that is if you are switching from the sort of solid shading and then you switch over to Eevee, sometimes you won't see anything. If that happens again, I will show you what's going on. Let's go over a few of the settings for it. So you have the noise rotation here. So if you wanted to change where the noise sits, and you can change some other aspects to it. You can see basically you just need to play with these settings and see if you get something that you like. The noise size, that makes it look more some sort of very abstract sort of forms. More curtains here, less curtains. If you change the Y setting, the Z setting will give you more of the same sort of change. The striation scale, if you changed that, you might not be able to see it in the preview. You'll have to experiment with that more when you render it, because that's the tiny details in the striation are where this is getting generated. The Aurora location, if you scrub that around, what that is generating is the mask that shows where the noise is appearing and hiding. So you can think of it more like a vignette that hides the noise, and that's sort of where it's going from. And then changing the scale, that's the same thing. It's the size of that mask that causes the Aurora to blur or fade away in the view. The Aurora hue is self-explanatory. Saturation and brightness, the same. If you change the global scale, that can change some of the overall size of the texture. So if you want more of a softer Aurora, you can make it a smaller form, or if you want more detailed, you can change that there. And then there's a distortion scale here. It's got some hard limits on it, but like most things in Blender, if you wanted to type in something larger, you could do that so that you can get an effect that you're going for, as well as the randomness. So depending on what you're trying to do. So those are the main settings, but you can step inside of it if you want to change more detail here. You can see how it's made and where elements are animated, such as the mapping here. And this mapping node here helps the noise as it flows through the curtains of the Aurora to create more of an undulating curtain look. But the overall noise and distortion changes via this texture empty over here. If I scrub through the timeline, you'll see that empty moving downward. It's just an infinitely moving empty that the textures are tied to. And if you wanted to change the speed of the undulation of these forms, you could change the speed of that empty by simply making this keyframe closer or further away. The setting that it's at right now is something that's similar to real life, at least as real life as I can simulate. Now, if you want to use the Aurora simulator or generator in your project, all you need to do is bring in this collection file right here with some caveats. So I'm going to create a new file here, general, don't save. And then let's go ahead and append this project. So if we go to my Blender files here, we can go to the Eevee file. Cycles or Eevee will work just fine. We go to the collection and then go to Aurora. We can append it. We'll zoom out because it's a large file. The large cube is the Aurora container. And then this file or object here, this square, is the cloud deck. And so if we go into our rendered view, we won't see much from the get-go, especially if you're just working on a new Blender file. And so to get around that problem, well, there's a couple of reasons it's happening. One is our world is gray. Let's change our world to a night sky. And then the other issue is if I get up closer, you'll start to see it appear. And that's because by default, Blender only has, if you're using Eevee, a 100-meter limit on how far away it'll render volumes. And so since this is a large scene, we have to increase the size of our volume settings. So if we come over to our render settings, go to volumes, let's increase our render resolution. Be careful on weaker systems of going to 1:1 with the resolution steps. You can get some crashing there. We'll go to 1 and 4. We'll increase the steps, but more importantly, under custom range, we'll just increase the distance. And you'll see our Aurora starting to appear now. You don't want to take it further than you have to, because that increases or spreads apart the slices of the volume in the scene. But there we go. Now the Aurora is in our scene, and the animations and everything should come along with it. Let me turn off overlays so you can see it a little bit better. So now it's in our scene. If I scrub through here, you'll see it moving through. And there you go. So again, this works perfectly well in cycles or in Eevee, and because it's just using emission shaders, emission volume shaders, it renders very, very quickly, especially in Eevee. And it doesn't use very many resources. So play around with it, and if you have any questions, send me an email. Thanks.